through episode 3. Just as an introduction again, my name's Haddy. Introduce yourself, boys.
Name's Dennis.
I'm Jack.
Cool. So, today we're going to be talking about Mr. Bungle. We're reviewing their newest album, The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demo. So Mr. Bungle, they've been around for a long time. We got about 20 years or longer? No, shit.
Longer, yeah, about like
1985. Okay, so that's like
now or something, yeah.
I feel old. Anyway, I wasn't born when they started.
That's because you're not as old as them.
Yeah, but that just puts things into perspective. When you look at 1985, it still feels like you could be like, 20 years ago. All right, man, I've just had a moment. You know that Matt Damon aging gif? That's just happening to me right now. I've got wrinkles everywhere. Anyway, so they've been around for a long time. Mike Patton, genius, I would say. Great artist, has his fingers in so many pies. I've definitely listened to this band for a long while, and I find, whenever you listen to something from them for the first time, no fucking idea what they're going to do, and this album was no different. Do you guys have kind of any Mr. Bungle kind of personal histories you can share? Any loves, hates?
I was a huge fan. I rinsed this demo, OU818. Used to love. Man, let me see. Yeah, I used to love some of these tunes. Obviously, Squeeze Me Macaroni was sick. Mr. Nice Guy, that was hilarious. Obviously, The Girls Are Porn as well, which I think they released this on Squeeze Me Macaroni and The Girls Are Porn may have been on California. And
no, it was on their first album,
self-titled.
Yeah. No, is it self-titled?
I think so.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that album was my shit back in the day, man.
I didn't like it. Yeah. I preferred this demo because it was like rough and ready, but I did appreciate Mr. Bungle because it was it's like a polished version of them.
Yes, but yeah, especially those tracks you mentioned, Squeezy Macaroni, Girls Are Porn, man. Like I said, as we were saying before, still holds up today. If anyone just wants some crazy avant-garde funk rock hybrid, just check that shit out.
And that's what I loved about Mr. Bungle is they were just like outsiders. They would do whatever they wanted. I mean, Disco Volante, that album, part of that was inspired by Burt Bacharach, show tunes, and you can hear it.
Disco Volante,
that's the one.
This one.
They would just go all over the shop.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I wasn't hot on that second album or the third, but they did go in different directions that I found the first one resonated with me the most. But again, like I said, each album's completely different. And within a single song, they're taking you through 10 different genres, and some people you're gonna listen to it and you're gonna fucking hate it. But if you've just got an open mind and you're ready for like some silliness, you have to be in the right mood. It's gonna hit the spot, I think.
I feel like generally that's like those are the best parts of Mr. Bungle by a mile.
Yeah.
But I think
like the silly eccentric moments.
Yeah. Because they've got such a like solid musical grounding. That they can like it's not, those deviations don't detract anything from it.
Yes,
but
they're like virtuosos at their instruments. Including Patton as a singer.
They really grew into that, I think, because like their earlier stuff, like Dennis was saying, with it being more rough and ready, like more of a punk hardcore
metally,
influence. There's a lot less of that, and then later on when you're like, having a full wind instrument section, you're getting a bit more of that kind of experimental stuff coming in.
And that Warner Brothers money behind you as well.
Do we Faith No More on acid? Would you guys say as a?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, see, it just depends what era you're talking about.
Yes,
it feels like it shouldn't. That shouldn't be something you have to say about Mr. Bungle because they've got such a like, Their sound is almost defined by it being almost undefinable. Like they've made their own box and put themselves in it.
Yeah.
How many other metal bands with a horn section?
Yeah. Yeah. There's almost no point trying to categorize them. Well, should we jump in? Should we jump straight in with the new album? So I'll give a bit of context to it. So from what I can see, it's effectively extend from one of their earliest EP/demos, right? I mean, it's called the Easter Bunny demo. So I guess it's a re-recording of one of their first releases, where they were traditional more traditional thrashy kind of metal / kind of punk influenced band. I had no idea this era of them existed, so coming into this, it was completely blind. My experience was always the self-titled album onwards. So yeah, listening for the first time, I completely taken aback. But yeah, so the other interesting thing of note that people might not know, so I guess I don't know if you would say they would brought in a session musicians, but they've captured two out of the big four in thrash metal in terms of musicians. So part of this album it includes Scott Ian, guitarist for Anthrax, I believe on rhythm guitar, and Dave Lombardo, drummer from Slayer.
Both goats.
Yeah. And again, I did not know this upon first listen, so again, mind was blown in terms of what they would, what the musical direction was taken. But yeah, seeing that these guys were involved, the cogs started turning. So yeah.
Do you know who the first choice was for the drummer?
Nope.
Igor Cavalera, Max Cavalera's brother from Sepultura.
Was I was never the biggest Sepultura fan, but was he the drummer in Sepultura as well?
I think so.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of the earlier albums, but I think he may have left at some point.
I think they had didn't they have a like Pantera type setup where it was like a guitarist and drummer was like the basis of a lot of the songs? I feel like I remember reading that.
The drummer was the bassist, or you mean the guitarist?
No, sorry, guitarist and drummer.
The drummer was the bassist. Okay, so I hope that's enough background for people. Let's get into our opinions. What did you guys think? Let's get your general thoughts. Said first listen, what?
I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
I was. This is almost kind of completely the opposite of what I had with the Deftones album, but from like the same starting point. So I was not expecting anything like this when I listened to it. I really was expecting, the first three studio albums, really experimental, like crazy characters in the vocal line, like loads of different influences, loads of different instrumentation,
right?
Song structures all the way over the head.
I would say is a good description.
Once it got into it and it just started thrashing my fucking face off, I was well down for it. Some of the riffs on this album are just absolute gold.
Especially considering that they were 16, 17 at the time.
Yeah, it's quite to be fair, something I can get into with reference to a couple of the songs later when we talk about them.
Yeah.
Generally the whole vibe of it is very mature, but the solo sort of stuff reminds me of a lot of the Shawdank stuff we used to write as teenagers on Guitar Pro.
Guitar Pro, yeah. How so?
We like, is this even humanly possible? It's just a load of notes.
Right. Yeah, there were moments where the guitar would be sort of tasteful within that genre, but there were moments where it's just atonal, tremolo picked, madness, not caring about the key that it's in. Yeah, it kind of had a bit of both. Dennis, what about you? Jack seems to be singing the praises. So do you share that sentiment?
Kind of. I started off Okay, so here's the journey. I heard the single first. I can't remember which single I heard. It may
It's got to
have
be a
been...
racist, right?
No, I think it was "Raping Your Mind"
Okay.
that
Track
I heard
3, I think.
first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And initially I was like, hell yeah, this sounds amazing. We're gonna get some more Bungle. Fuck yeah. And I initially my thoughts were, okay, so the album is gonna be like, yeah, similar to their other stuff, avant-garde metal stuff. I didn't think it would be an entire album of thrash. So I was expecting other things. So I started listening to the album, and it's just like thrash, 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 good thrash, but just thrash, thrash, thrash. So initially, I was disappointed. I was like,
You're just
oh,
waiting
man,
for
I
that
was
next hit.
Yeah, when's the horn section going to kick in? Like,
yeah.
I was just expecting a little bit of variety in terms of the genres and the style.
Right.
So my first sort of listen through, I was a bit disappointed, and then I kept listening to it and was absolutely just blown away. I mean, it immediately brought me back to why like I love like Bay Area thrash of this era, and I think it was an interview I saw with Scott Ian, which was he was like, if this album had come out in the quality that it's in at the time in 1986, then these guys would have been as big as Tool. They would have been just ahead of everyone else, because at this time, like Megadeth was just releasing Peace Sells, but Who's Buying? Slayer was in between, was on their third album, I think. They hadn't released Rain and Blood yet. Around this area is where that Bay Area Metallica, Slayer, Exodus sort of scene started to come about.
This the original demo. This would have been what, mid to late 80s release? Is that
1986?
Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's in that same timeline.
Yeah, exactly. It would have slotted in just perfectly within that.
Well, that's what interesting. This is a bit of a sidetrack, but again, when I was doing a bit of reading on them and refreshing about their history, I don't know if you guys know much about the feud they had with the Chili Peppers.
I've heard of it.
Literally got that. Just open on Wikipedia at the moment.
So I knew about it back in the day, but again, I was just in a bit reading before we started doing this. So I guess, Dennis, for your knowledge at least, they had like a genuine beef. I think specifically Patton and Anthony Kiedis were like at each other's necks, and I think it stemmed from like Kiedis saying that they were ripping off his style, or Patton was ripping off him.
I remember this because his style of singing and dancing.
Like kind of like long hair jumping about, like rapping and singing. I guess more the kind of stuff he was doing with Faith No More, but a mix. But I think it got to the point where like Chili Peppers were like saying, "Oh, we're not going to tour like the same festivals or do the same shows if they're playing," just because it just escalated and they ended up hating each other, which again in the context is crazy, because it seems like Chili Peppers like kind of threatening to boycott shows mean that because they were more popular, Mr. Bungle got kicked in certain places, and that might have led to them not becoming as popular. I think part of the reason why they broke up was kind of partly like financial and stuff, just because they weren't kind of selling or doing as many shows. And it does feel in a way like a what if band, like potentially what if they kept on, they could have maybe got to Chili Peppers level. I don't know if they would have got that big, but it's kind of like it's almost like that rift shut them down as a band at some point. So it's pretty crazy butterfly effect type thing.
If they had that like earlier success, like you're saying, I wonder if they would have become as experimental. Because like we were saying in episode 1, that would have been a much bigger risk than going from like being, fairly kind of locally known and like some of your stuff reaching out as a thrash band, and then going, actually, you know what, let's pick up a saxophonist and make some weirder shit. But if you're like, if you're second or third album Chili Peppers, and then you're like, let's completely change everything we're doing, then you could be doing yourself no favors at all.
Yeah. But I mean, again, it kind of feels like, I don't know, like I said, Patton's, he had so many projects that it kind of like, it feels like even if he did want to do something that was kind of in that vein, or stick to one lane genre wise within that one band, it wouldn't matter too much to him, because he's got so many other projects where he can explore other kind of musical styles. So I don't think there would have been an issue, and it does seem like every band that he's in, he's going to be the one that's going to be driving the sound. Again, just an assumption, but I'm assuming he's going to be like a control freak.
Seemed like it.
Cool. So, I mean, any more general thoughts from you guys, or do you want to hear my opinion?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, funny. I feel like I'm on the other kind of side of the field to you guys. So, I guess similar to kind of the initial experience you had, Dennis. My first listen was just the album, not select tracks, but going into it, Anarchy Up Your Anus, Raping Your Mind, obviously balls to the walls thrash. I was kind of like, okay, this is again, I have no idea what to expect. They surprise me, but it's delivering in terms of kind of just the immense sound from them, and again, just exploring a genre that I wasn't too familiar that they would actually do. Again, because I had no idea about their roots as like a thrash like punky band. But as the album went on, and it was just thrash, it was literally one lane throughout the whole album. It really bored me, and I appreciate that they are delivering like a high level of kind of thrash metal music, but as a genre, it's never been something that I've been keen on. I just find it, I don't know. It's low on my metal tier list in terms of music I like to listen. I generally the kind of super high tempo, punky influenced, early Big Four stuff is just not what I want to hear. And they do it well. It's a shame they do it well, but when I want to listen to Mr. Bungle, I want to listen to them, like I said, spanning 10 genres in a single song, and just to blow my mind with how the fuck are they pulling this element from? Oh, they're playing, I don't know, flamenco here, and then now they're into death metal, and it was just the same thing and the same thing and the same thing, and that thing is good for what it is, but I couldn't handle it across an hour-long album. It was not.
It felt like a long hour.
Yes, it dragged, and the listens, the repeat listens, just with everything that we've done so far, I've wanted to go back to it. With Deftones, when we revisited Tyler's discography, but it just felt like a chore going back to it. And there are tracks I like, but a lot of it blends together. It was really hard to pick out tracks I really like and tracks I don't, because it all kind of sits in the middle. And I never thought I'd say this about a band like this. A band like this, I'd always imagined that I could put on a song and I'd be like, instantly, I know what this is. I kind of feel like I know this isn't the way it went, because again, they're re-recording material that they've already made, but it kind of feels like them pulling in Dave Lombardo and Scotty, and it's almost like they've adopted their style instead of getting them as session musicians to kind of fit Mr. Bungle sound. I know this is I'm almost reversing history, but just from my mental perspective of being used to their like eclectic sound, it was a big disappointment. I mean, like I said, I want a genre mosaic when I go to this band, and I feel like they really just pigeonholed themselves. Yeah.
I feel like two
these songs
huge...
could have...
You go, Dennis.
Sorry, go ahead, mate.
No, you go first. I just got like a side note.
Well, same here. I was just going to say some of these songs could do with being a little bit shorter. Like, for instance, "Raping Your Mind." They go back into like a verse chorus solo at the end, and it's just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because it ends up being like nearly a 6-minute song. When if that was like a 4.5-minute song, it would have been perfectly fine. But then
100%.
again, maybe it's just because they were younger and their arrangement skills, maybe their musical skills were quite advanced, but then their arrangement skills still needed work.
But then that begs the question for me: why, if you started off unrefined and then became, this crazy, blend of technical ability with different genres, why would you then go back to your early days? I mean, obviously, clearly, it's something they like and want to do, but for me, it kind of feels, like you're stepping backwards.
As part of what Scott Ian said about it is he felt like him and Dave were picked up to have like a solid place in the band, like a solid part in their sound. They wanted to add in what they could from Anthrax and Slayer, which kind of like goes hand in hand with this earlier work where it's just thrashy, because I don't know where like I've not listened to enough Scott Ian just playing the guitar outside of Anthrax songs to know if he has the range for like Bungle's middle album stuff, whereas
he's
like,
a great rhythm
jazzy
player,
stuff.
Just to say, his riffs are insane.
Yeah, good. If
just the speed he plays at.
The stuff like, because the only like the kind of hint that you get, which is almost kind of really, really misleading, of the possibilities of different elements in the album. There's a couple of them throughout, but like the intro track, where you're like, it fits within a thrash bubble, with it being like a clean intro and a build up to the rest of the track, and it introduces heavier, more distorted guitars as it goes through. It's all slightly modal, so it's not like entirely comfortable sitting like it would be with a blues pentatonic or something. But if you don't know that's the album that you're about to start listening to, you could be like, oh, this is sick, like they've got a really nice heavy intro, and then it just never changes for the rest of it. I wonder if having those other members is that limitation now.
I was going to say we can get into a track by track in a second, I suppose. Might be good to go through it. I don't know if we'd have, we might have more to say about one track than another, assuming, but so we can just run through them quickly. But I just wanted to cap things off on my general thoughts and say, if you're a metal fan and you thought metal died from 1990 onwards, you're gonna love this album. if you want a well-produced Slayer album or an Anthrax album, you're gonna love this album. None of those things are what I feel or wanted, and I hate to say it because there is some good stuff on here, but for me, every moment that they kind of showed themselves in terms of drifting away from thrash, there were slower moments, there were slight little bits, maybe like 30 seconds here where they kind of drift and tease like a different genre. Those are the bits I loved, but the general, high tempo thrash that dominated like 90% of this album, it wore on me. And I think if this was a 5-track EP, I would have liked it a lot more. But I can't hear the same song for an hour straight in a genre that's not my, not what I like.
Hypocrites was a taste of the Bungle I was expecting, because it's got that little bit where it just turns into like cucaracha.
Yeah, that was like the first time on the album where they kind of drifted away from.
It's only like 4 songs in as well. So it's so misleading. You're like, okay, cool, we've had the intro, they wrote 3 thrash songs, that's fine. Yeah. And then now they're back on, they've turned on the Bungle.
Well, let's go through it. I mean, like I said, if there's certain tracks that you guys, I mean, I know for me there's going to be certain tracks where, because it kind of blends in the rest, I'm not going to have much to say, but maybe we should do a quick run through of the tracks.
Grizzly Adams. Let's breeze through Grizzly Adams, because I think Jack's pretty much touched on all you can say about points. That. Really.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good intro. I mean, I like the layered, clean guitars. Yeah, and I like the build up, because it's like, oh, something wicked this way comes.
Yeah, that could have gone into anything. It did not set me up for what track 2 was going to be and what the album was going to be. That that could have gone into any one of their crazy genre bending things, and I would not have been taken aback. So it was a very ambiguous track, and I guess it came even from the kind of the melody and harmony. There was a mixture of the kind of beautiful kind of sweetness, but also the dark edge, like the dark kind of anxiety feeling in your chest. I found it was a very good blend of kind of I guess a good summary of what they are. They can be as a band. You know, the light, angelic with the kind of darkness. So.
Could have used more of that sort of towards the middle of the album, because I was the same as you. I was getting exhausted towards the end.
Okay, Anarchy Up Uranus. Any thoughts?
See, I understand the disappointment of not getting a Bungle album, but I think there are some songs on here that are just such clean thrash, such like tight sounds with the like beautiful mixing on the guitars. Everything's heavy as fuck, but you can hear what's going on. I really like it. I think this song is really served well by being quite short as well, which some of the other songs suffer from not quite being short enough. But yeah, it's 2 minutes. Like,
yeah, it's a good length. I think if a lot of the other tracks had the same length, it would have again kind of appeased me more. Because when you've got several like 5 to 7 minute tracks and it hits you with the thrash, you know, pulls back a bit and then goes back into thrash, it just tires me out. So I agree. This is a good length for this kind of genre. If you're gonna be a traditional kind of thrash band playing at the same tempo. So yeah, I liked it.
The voiceover at the start is another red herring that you're there's loads of elements on this album that I think would they're really, really weird things to choose to do, but on a different Bungle album they fit in seamlessly, and there's no point even talking about them because it's on every single track. But here you're like, it really stands out because there's fucking none of it. I love that voiceover.
I love the voiceover, and I think red herring is the perfect word to use. The intro and sort of just generally the intro, guitar instrumental, and the voiceover, exactly. They know what they're doing, right? They're trying to pull you thinking, I'm going to take you here, and then no. We're deciding where you're going to go.
It was sorry, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say this was very Megadeth in that it does that switch. First of all, starts off as one song and then you get a different song, and as well I don't know, something about the way that voiceover was layered on top of the intro riff reminded me of a Megadeth song. I couldn't find which Megadeth song it was, but it was very Megadeth to me.
Yeah,
I think a lot of this obviously it's going to have a lot of, like we're saying, it's going to have a lot of like Exodus influence, a lot of Big Four influence, all that sort of stuff going through. But yeah, there were a couple of moments where there were it's really weird to think that this is quite an old album, because one, like the mixing doesn't sound at all dated because it's been completely revamped for this and re-recorded, and it sounds so clean and modern, and digital, I guess, probably a better way of describing the difference. But there's loads of stuff where I can't tell if it's either an influence they had on a band that came out later and that I heard it later, or if it's something that's been emphasized this time around as it's become something that stuck with the genre as it went on.
Yeah, you're right. It is weird to hear something in 2020 and kind of you frame it as like being new, but at the same time, you're right. It could have been something that kind of one of the other thrash bands heard and kind of influenced them. It's just weird to kind of think about it in this way, especially when on top you've got the very relatively clean production. When you compare it to albums from the 80s that were obviously way more rough. It kind of fucks with your head when you kind of put it into the historical context, I think.
Yeah, it was 86. I can't remember that the original came out. I can't remember anything getting even close to this quality in 86. But the tonal is so there. It's so weird to listen to.
Yeah, it doesn't have like the trappings of like modern, clean, hyper-produced metal by any standard. But it pushes halfway there. But on a musical level, it's very much in the roots of that genre. So it's a weird blend to listen to.
I would rather listen to a Bungle thrash album than a Bungle gent album, though.
Oh yeah, of course.
To cut into the you did. I just had that thought there with when you're mentioning clean, like modern metal.
Yeah. I guess my ears are attuned because I, the majority of metal listening that I do now would be modern and have that clean production, that it kind of it is weird to kind of go back to something that you know has the dirtier roots, but cleans things up a little bit. There's a little bit of polish. It's not fully polished, but it's dusted off.
Oh, also, sorry, before we move on to anything else, there were a couple of moments where that's one of the reasons I'm rocking my protest shirt today, because that got me thinking about it. The lyrics of the song about like being legitimate with your influence and putting like your personality and influences into the music that you make in a legitimate, respectable way. I've just, looking at it briefly, found so many links to Underbite by Protest. It's almost exactly the same idea, where they kind of like tell the story of a band doing a show, but it's completely false and it's from a completely like pretentious standpoint. I thought that was really interesting, to have this kind of really baseline, one genre, one dimensional album, but there's a few tracks where they've, it's Mike Patton giving a really, really eclectic like worldview through a very understandable lens.
Yeah, there was a few songs like
there's an irony to it.
Even Hypocrites, Alba Espanol, because there's a bit there where he's like, "Speak Spanish or die," which I think is like a callback to a band that Scott Ian was in called Speak English or Die. Sorry, yeah, Stormtroopers of Death, who had an album called Speak English or Die.
Yeah,
but it was like a satire. It wasn't like a racist album at all. It was just like a joke, like a hardcore joke.
Yeah.
And they've got.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Sorry, finish your point.
I was just going to say, it's the same sort of thing where it's sort of like this, it's sort of like a joke or satire commentary being injected into the album.
Yeah, I was just going to say in general, I mean, I'm not a lyrics guy, so I never delve too much, but it does kind of feel like with these guys, it's going to be in joke on top of reference, on top of, you could really do a lot of digging to kind of find the context and what they're poking fun at. And a lot of times, they're probably going to be poking fun at themselves. Let's move on to Raping Your Mind. Thoughts?
Great first riff. I thought it could have done with being a little bit shorter. But that first riff, I think it comes back once, which is like, absolutely love that. And then it switches to something else. And I think you get two drum fills in this from, is it Phil Lombardo?
Dave Lombardo, I believe.
Dave Lombardo.
Yeah,
you get two little.
You're gonna have Slayer fans coming down on you hard now. All of our Slayer watchers.
I think I was mixing him up with Phil Anselmo, so I'll try and get the Pantera fans on my side.
It's weird that you say that, because around 3 minutes, the end of Cemetery Gates, where they've got that vocal guitar like dive bomb battle or whatever it is, where like around 3 minutes, and then a couple of other points, and I think it comes back on another song, but I didn't mark down the time for when it does. Mike just out of nowhere hits this like complete scream drop. Fucking sick. I had to write it down. It's just almost exactly Pantera's Cemetery Gate outro.
I mean, on that point, if just talking about general vocals, like what Mike Patton demonstrates across this whole album as a vocalist, being he's got to be in his 50s. Dude is insane. Like the range this guy has in terms of like growls, screams, like crooning, like this guy is one of the most impressive singers like ever. And Again, it was a bit of a disappointment for me on this album, because he's such a great singer and he doesn't sing at all. It's all growled. I was a bit let down on that aspect because of how good he is. But at the same time, I kind of just had to sit back and be like, this guy's screaming like a guy who's like 30 years younger than his actual age, and nailing it. Like just yeah, what a performance throughout.
I can't wait because we were talking about mashups after we stopped recording the episode last week. I can't wait for the Sweet Charity Raping Your Mind mashups.
Remix.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I mean, so just back to Raping Your Mind. I mean, for me, this was probably one of my favorite tracks. Probably going to be in my top 3. Great drum work, multiple guitar solos, which is always going to be a good one with me. And the guitar solos generally were on, they are fast, blistering, but they're on the more melodic side, which again I would resonate more than the kind of atonal stuff that they do. So yeah, this was one of my favorites. This was the point where I was like, is the whole album going to be like this? But it's still entertained because the track was so good for me that I was still ready to hear it.
I feel like it kind of progressed across the song in terms of the solos, because for the first one is pure like technical ability manifested, but then definitely the like the one around 320. I can't remember if there's more than 3 solos in it, which I think there might be, but the one around 320, it's modal. It's got rhythmic counterplay with the kind of like chuggy background. But there's moments of it before it drops into, sweep picking and more tremolo picking and all that sort of stuff. And then the solo that comes on even later has a further extended melodic section before all of the kind of, modal or out of scale runs. So yeah, like it's, if the album had progressed as well as this song did in terms of the solos getting more and more musical as it went on, I feel like it would have been a much easier listen.
Yeah, and see that, because I disagree with Dennis, your point on this track being too long. I thought it justified its length partly due to the kind of variance in the guitar solo. But again, I'm going to be biased as a like a guitarist that loves his leads. But yeah, I thought it justified its length really well. It kind of had shades of I'm not going to put the lead work on the same level, but it had shades of a track like Hangar 18 for me. So this was right up my alley. This track.
Yeah, first, Haddy says Bungle better than Megadeth.
I need to temper that. It was a poor man's Hangar 18, but
so you just liked the quantity of solos.
Yeah, I found again, quantity, but also variance. Like Jack's points, it had the variance. It felt like it was building. There were other tracks where there were leads that just kind of came out of nowhere, and again just stayed on the same level and didn't do much for me. But this, again, the kind of balance of different lead styles kept me entertained for a lot of it. Along with like I said, the great riffs, great drum work. I thought everyone was like 10 out of 10 on this.
So you're not sick of the album at this point?
No, I'm not. No.
Questioning.
At this point, I'm into it. Like I said, I preferred this to Anarchy Up Your Anus. So at this point, this is probably the peak for my album enjoyment. But there's still warning bells going off my head, thinking, can I handle an album like this? Fully. This is the point where I'm almost giving up the benefit of the doubt in terms of them.
Really, second track?
No. Well, benefit of the doubt in terms of in my mind, I'm thinking, when are they gonna explore other genres and go into the crazy stuff.
This is like I can't remember the stages of grief, but it's like you get the intro and you're like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. You get the first album, the first song, and you're like, denial. You're just like, yeah, it'll change. It's gonna come. You get to this one, you're like, no, but what if it doesn't?
Yes.
What if I'm stuck here?
That's an exact perfect description of how I was thinking. I genuinely, but like I said, I was still down for it because I like the track in total. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, nah, come on, we need to do something else. So
track 9, when you're in acceptance.
we'll get to that. Let's move on to Hypocrites / Habla Español.
On Muere.
I could have.
The end of that.
I could have done without the covers in general on the album, I think.
Yeah.
Although.
Wait, oh, okay, yeah.
Because there's this track and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. I'll try and find it a little later, but yeah, the this track cutting into La Cucaracha, I was like, awesome. Okay, fine, here we go. Strap myself in. When it didn't come, and it went back in to Speak Spanish or Die, and I was like, it's just more of the same, but I don't think it's actually as good as what they wrote for the album.
Well, that's the thing, because they keep teasing you. They keep teasing you as a fan of their old work, because I felt like this was the biggest departure so far in terms of genre. Obviously, with the kind of Spanishy part. So I was kind of like, okay, here we go, we're ready. I'm still not in. I'm still in denial, shall we say? But you're right. It then just goes straight back into the super fast tempo, and it's really disappointing at this part. At this point in time for me as a listener. It's all foreplay. It's no full action.
There's no money shot.
In terms of what they could do as a band, what I'm used to.
You want that fat bungle dick,
yeah,
and you're just getting the tip.
Yeah, I feel like I need to work my way out of this metaphor at this point.
I feel like you're too far in. Which something they weren't. If we're going to carry on with the metaphor, they never go in enough.
I mean, again, I would just say with this, with this track, there's elements I like. They're teasing with different parts, which I'm down for this band. There's like a surfy guitar lead at the end, which I enjoy. Again, anything that's taking away from the high tempo thrash for me is what I'm enjoying, but it keeps coming back to it. That's
actually like because that's such a that's something they do a bit on California, isn't it? With the that really not tremolo picking, but the tremolo effect, the really surfery style of it. Like but they mix that in with the heavier stuff so regularly on the album, and it works really, really well. And even listening to Dick Dale and the Dominoes and shit, you can tell how that progressed through rock and roll into metal, because the dude's just there shredding. He's just hella fucking clean with it.
Yeah, you could make an argue that kind of Dick Dale style is like the origin of shred.
Yeah,
but again, even with that lead, it comes under, even though the music under it is heavy, it's a slower, it's like a mid-tempo kind of metal riff, which again, kind of I would gravitate towards, and then disappoints at the end as it picks back up and it goes into the same old. So love and a mixture of love and hate for this one. What did you think, Dennis?
I like it. It's similar to you. I liked how it changed it up a little bit. I liked how they Mr. Bungle don't really take themselves too seriously, which is great. And to be fair, the whole album is a bit light. It's not taking itself too seriously. I mean, it does have sort of commentary here and there, but still
doesn't that feel weird with the genre? Because the genre seems so self-serious.
Is it? Oh, I mean,
like traditional thrash metal, it seems like one of the most elitist kind of genres. So, and it's not a bad thing that they're kind of like a very tongue-in-cheek band that are doing that concept in general isn't a bad thing. But there is a weird juxtaposition of them playing a genre that feels so kind of thrash or die.
I see what you mean. Yeah, if you go through Metallica, Kill 'Em All,
exactly,
serious.
And you look at the fans that dropped. You look at the fans of those bands like Metallica and that dropped off when they kind of ditched those roots.
I see what you mean. But that's one aspect that I like about it was was it didn't it was a bit of a light-hearted song. But
it's the most light-hearted one so far. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was really just a stopgap to Bungle Grind, and I think Bungle Grind is just so much of a better song, because this felt almost like a skit, almost like a holder track,
What Hablo Espanol felt like a
like a stopgap rather than a full track.
Okay.
Yeah, it almost detracts from the style of album because of that. Whereas normally, that's the shit that you're waiting for on Bungle albums. You want that weird, that stuff the way it makes you do a double take and go, what? Why have they done that? I mean, it works, but how? Why? But yeah, when this came out, as soon as I realized it wasn't going to be a continuing theme, it just felt like it had taken me out of that zone that I'd been put in by the first two tracks.
Yeah, maybe it would have worked better at the end. You know, at that point you're attuned to it, the kind of album it is, and they've given you a bit of relief at the end. I mean, I know we love to discuss our reordering, but yeah, I share the exact same opinion as you. You know, the early placement really kind of leads you astray.
Yeah,
So
Bungle Grind was sick.
Bungle Grind. Sorry, anything more on that track or?
We were talking about
Grind.
Hypocrites. We could move on to Bungle Grind.
I'm done with Hypocrites.
Done with
I've
Hypocrites.
been done with it for about a week.
Yeah. The riff to Bungle Grind is so groovy. I like how groovy it is.
It's a true, like, what became that grindy kind of Pantera groove. It's a true throwback to that. Like, you can again, it's that weird thing where, like, either it was an influence or they shared influences, or it just has elements that remained within metal. But yeah, it's got so many quintessential parts of that. What's great about the kind of rise of thrash and the bands that followed.
Yeah, you can see elements of this song in, like, the guys that were inspired by this, so like Trivium and like Mastodon and those guys. You can see elements of what they do in this, especially with the tone.
You know what fucked this up for me? Those fucking whistles. Who the fuck decides to just put like sports whistles in the track? It's like about halfway in the latter half, man. What the?
I've forgotten about that.
I can't listen to that track again because of that. You know what the parts that I do enjoy from it, that just fucks it up for me. I can't go back to it.
You know what? I'd completely blocked that out of my memory from this track.
Well, you're a stronger man than me.
Mm.
If you'd asked me where somebody blew a whistle on this album, I could not have told you.
Neither could I. But clearly, Hattie was just like, a whistle. I
don't know. I like this. I feel like this track. If you have a box of thrash metal, yeah, and like you can see the members of Bungle inside, like struggling against the confines of the genre they've chosen to make an album in, and they're trying to break it. I feel like Bungle Grind is one of the places where you can see that box kind of break a little, and you see tiny tears appearing in it, but it doesn't completely fall apart to the same level as like the Hypocrites song Mashup.
Right. But it does have probably the most changes within a single track, not necessarily genre-wise, but you know, tempo and vocal
and the levels,
style.
Balancing like more melodic, less in your face sections, with then it actually ramping up and earning something.
Yeah, and Patton's not. What I found interesting was that Patton's not like kind of doing the shout growl thing. He's just screaming. But this whole thing, he goes super high pitched, which is interesting. Again, impressive on the vocal front, but not necessarily something I would come back to for enjoyment. But
his call out, the titular line of Bungle Grind before it goes into a fucking grindy riff, I was a big fan of. I was right there with him for that. I didn't timestamp it, but yeah, just those, like, instead of having something more kind of tonally pleasing or something, it's just you can see the raw power of his voice as a vocalist.
Yeah, again, just a good display of range. But yeah, I mean, look, to summarize this for me, fuck whistles. I'm ready to move on to mathematics, unless you guys have other things to add.
Are we gonna come back for like a top choices kind of thing?
Yeah, I've got a top three. We can do at the end.
Three.
Cool.
Yeah. So mathematics, opinions.
Would you? Sorry, just one thing. It's kind of general. It'll work as a bridge between them. Would you? Where would you consider the middle of the album to begin? Because I know you guys said that you were a bit kind of worn down by the middle, or like where would you say that started and ended?
These next three songs, I would say, so Bungle Grind, Mathematics, Erasist, I would say that this is sort of the middle of the album.
Because
Bungle Grind was where I felt worn, and there are parts later that picked me back up, but that was the track where I was a bit tired.
Because this is where I was in for the album at this point. Like Mathematics was probably, I mean, it's going to be on my top 3 in one of the positions.
But again, let me just say on this, like the intro, the it was a red herring. Again, I was ready for a lower tempo, kind of more like hard rock track, and then it goes straight into the the thrash again within within less than a minute.
This is another track that's got a hell of a lot of riffs in it though. Like
it's a long track, too long.
9 minute long.
Yeah,
too long if you're gonna spend the majority of it with thrash. I'm sorry, thrash fans. I'm sorry. But don't make an 8-minute thrash song unless you're going to have like some Marty Friedman Spanish guitar interlude in the middle.
At least the structuring of the songs remained. Well, I guess this is kind of where it started, rather than it stayed like this. But like, at least it's showing that they can do that breadth of song structures and coming up with new ideas and not recycling material and stuff like some other bands in similar genres.
That encapsulates everything. They have that ability. They just don't do it enough.
But there's like this. It's such a tough way to judge it because you're like, this is a track that wasn't on the original EP. Yeah, but it was written at the same time. So this, Lost for Words, Glutton for Punishment, and Deracist were all written for 86, but just not recorded and included on the demo.
Well, a Racist, I mean, I don't, we'll get to it, but a Racist for me feels like it came from a completely different era.
Okay.
So that kind of it makes sense in a way that it didn't go on there, but yeah.
I think a lot of this, like, because it's like, towards the end they've got a half pace riff, like a halftime. Yeah. It's like
that was one of the best bits of the album. Again,
100%.
The reprieve from like the high tempo into that brutal fucking breakdown. More of that. I love that bit. It's about 6 minutes 30, I think.
It's not. It's like the end of to rep my protest, Fanboy. Again, it's like Blood Meat. The end of it, where you just drop and you're like, you could play this riff twice the speed. It's still a good riff, but it's easily 4 times heavier from that slow down, hitting that like gloomy like stuff.
With the scream. Amazing. But again, I'm coming back to it for something else from the meat and potatoes of the album, and that's that little side dish, that little dessert, and I was still hungry.
And this is a song where Mike gets to stretch his voice, character, whatever, legs a bit as well. Like he's not as stuck to one screamy or growling style like he is on a lot of other tracks, and there's a lot of like punk hardcore influence with the gang vocals and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, again, not something I'm a fan of. Like any chance, just a personal bias against that.
I was a big fan.
I knew you would be more positive,
especially Dennis, on Erasist. They hit hard on Erasist.
Yeah. We'll get to that because I think I've got an opinion that might surprise you about that. But Dennis, any thoughts on Mathematics? Don't know if you've said much on this track.
I thought, these 3 songs are kind of similar.
What Hypocrites to Mathematics?
Bungle Grind to
Erasist.
Erasist. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They're kind of similar in that they, like Jack was saying, they make you work for it. They kind of switch up from the intro. This song, obviously being the longest one, has the biggest sort of so many different types of changes. It makes sense, bro. It's way too long. It makes sense that Mike Patton would be varying the most in this song because it's just so damn long.
Yeah.
I do like it though, just because of actually, one thing that really distracted me in this song is that one of the riffs in it is reused for a different song called "Love Is a Fist." Is it?
That's off their first album. That song.
It is, yeah. It is actually on this demo as well. But yeah,
dude, I love your fucking wallpaper, man. You pointed towards the tracks. That's such a nice touch. We got this high production. Yeah. Well, one of us.
High
does.
zoom productions. Yeah. So it was confusing for me because like it would go into da 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 da, and in my head I want to go love is a fist da 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 da. Love is.
So you recognized it first time?
Yeah, definitely. Because I heard that song so many times because it's on this demo and it's on this self-titled as well. So I've heard that song so many times that it's just cued in my head. So that was a bit distracting. So I couldn't really get into it as much. Just because of that. You're
kind of just thinking, oh, I just want to go back to that track.
Well, it's just distracting, that's all. It's not that I want to go back to it. It's just I'm thinking of that song whilst listening to this song.
No, I get it. Okay. So mixed opinions on that track, but like I said, it's so long that I kind of feel like, everyone's going to take a bit that they like and a bit that they don't like. Should we do a racist?
There's like a solid minute outro. That's that heavy bit at the end of Mathematics. Which is like completely a step away from everything that you've had on the album so far. That was one moment where I was like, I'm kind of out of the moment here with it. If there'd been more of stuff like that, I feel like you guys would have been happier. Yeah, I would have 100%. Just been happy to just thrash all the way through without that. Like, that 1 minute was besides the riff being heavy as fuck, that minute was like a questionable choice.
You're fucking crazy, man. Like I said, from the brutal breakdown up to the end, they could have cut that out and slotted that into another track, obviously within my fictional EP, and it would have ramped up the quality of the album for me. But
well, the next song is a bit of a reprieve because it's a bit of a slower song at times, for half the song anyway. I do like it just because it's really punk. You've got the punk vocals, the gang vocals, as you're saying, and the tempo sort of changes halfway through to sort of become sort of a more hardcore tempo. This is an alright song. It's a bit of a reprieve from the brutality of the rest of the album.
Yeah, I mean, for someone going into the album wanting that kind of ear meltingness, this is probably going to disappoint. But again, for me, the change in tempo, and I would say it stayed quite consistent throughout in terms of being mid-tempo. Obviously, there were, like you said, there were slight changes, but the core of the track was kind of like a mid-tempo, or it almost kind of felt like a hard rock track more than metal, for me, let alone like thrash metal. And it was one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites again, just because I'm getting some diversity. I can tell it was one of the singles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, an obvious choice. I think it's like it's definitely probably one of the more accessible ones for like the widest audience. But I liked it. I mean, maybe on an album of similar songs it wouldn't stand out so much for me, but it did on this. Again, just as a bit of a reprieve from the rest.
The solo on it as well is just punk as fuck. It's one of the more atonal solos on the album.
But it also it was kind of it was, but at the same time it was more of like a traditional like pentatonic-y solo too, or at least it started off like that. So there were a lot of bent held notes which we haven't heard so much on the earlier tracks. So it just overall felt like one of the most traditional songs, not straying too far from what it set out to do.
Which is like, if you think about it in a stereotypical way, it makes it crazy that they didn't include it the first time around. If you're thinking business wise and what we know about bands now, if you're trying to make it and you're like, here's our demo tape, we've got this really like accessible version of our style, but we're not going to include it on the demo.
Yeah, but maybe we're like, oh, this shit's not hard enough compared to the other.
Everybody wants this tempo the whole time.
I was going to say maybe it was dropped for that reason, because again, going back to the potential like kind of thrash elitism it might have put people that kind of went to the album for the other tracks might have been put off by this one.
The demo is only 6 tracks long, I think, as well. I'm not 100% on that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't feel like this track would have fit in with the EP at all. At least for the demographic they were presumably trying to like catch. It does feel so different.
It makes sense. I mean, because Scott Ian was in a hardcore band, so it could be sort of his influence coming in, playing it more as a hardcore song.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the original tracks though.
I'm getting the vibe neither of you were that hot on this one.
I think it was.
I know, Jack, you said you weren't because you were down for the thrash at this point.
From like I don't like a racist.
Yeah. Your original.
I thought it was good. Okay. I think
same
for
here.
me,
I quite liked it.
Okay, I misread what you were saying. I think.
The middle part of the album, like these 3 songs, Bungle Grind, Mathematics, Racist, that like really kind of solidified the album in my mind. But I think maybe that's because I was coming out of the Stormtroopers of Death cover and the like Cucaracha stuff. And when I realized that it wasn't going to be that type of album, what I was looking for was more of the thrash. Because I get it's disappointing, but I'm going to keep saying it throughout. I feel like it's really high quality thrash metal.
It is. I'm not denying that. That
one note they tried to hit, that one dimension they were going for, they nailed it. It's disappointing to not get more from a band where you're like, they have so much potential.
Yeah.
But what they did is good.
Yeah. If I was a big thrash fan, this is essential listening. That's not something I would want to argue otherwise. Just thinking in the sake of time, we should probably move through the others. Spreading the thighs of disease.
Thighs of death, isn't it? Spreading the thighs of death.
Yeah.
Shit, my bad.
This was probably my least fired. This was probably my least favorite track. Just because it sounds so like middle of the road thrash, which isn't what I expect from Mr. Bungle. I say that this is probably one of the worst aspects of the album. But then again, it's a re-release of the demo. Jack, is this?
This was on the demo, yeah. The original.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask, Jack. Is this one of the ones that was? Is this one of the ones that was written?
It was on the original demo.
And then it was on the original demo. Okay.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So this is disappointing because it comes back to our initial impressions of the album in that it sounds like they've sort of gone backwards when we were really looking forward to what does Bungle sound like in 2020, and this is very middle of the road thrash in my opinion.
Completely agree. One of the more forgettable tracks on the album. So 100%. I don't really have much to say about it. But yeah, this is definitely one that blended into the others.
Okay, lost for words. Were they in before Iron Maiden?
Yeah. That was it. It reminded me a lot of like Power Slave.
Is Lost for Words on that album?
What one on Power Slave?
On the original.
Or is it on the original demo? It's not on the original demo.
No,
if that's what you're asking me.
I know it was Lost for Words, the Iron Maiden track on.
No.
On Power Slave.
No, I think you were saying it had that sound.
Yeah, it reminded me of Power Slave, the Maiden era.
All right.
But obviously with a much fuller, less kind of single coily tone.
This track, right, did the same thing did the same thing as Mathematics for me, but in a shorter form. It had bits I liked throughout, but it didn't capture me until the last fucking minute, where again they slowed things down and it went into a brutal fucking breakdown. Again, I think it's about 3:15 onwards, straight through to near the end. loved it again because it kind of changed things up. So it kind of did a concise version of what Mathematics did, and I would argue overall, like, one of Patton's craziest performance on the album throughout as a vocalist.
I stand corrected, Dennis. Probably the reason my brain went to Power Slave when I was listening to this is because Lost for Words is on Power Slave. I started to Google it because something was ticking in my brain. Yeah, it is.
So it is an actual cover, is it?
No,
it's just the same name.
It's not like Lost for Words as well. It's like Lost for Words.
My bad.
That's the one. I mean, yeah, I do like that breakdown at the end, the brutality of it. I mean, this is the tail end of the album, so this album compared to like Ohms, the last album review that we did, which is just all over the place. At least this has a trajectory.
Yeah, dude, I just needed more of that, man. More of that heaviness, more of that tempo.
That slower tempo, shorter songs as well.
Yes.
Not these long, brutal.
Again, fine. You want to do a thrash album? Make it short. Make the songs short. Have sections like that to fill more of the time. Again, just for diversity. But again, that comes back to my personal bias in terms of A, not being a classic thrash fan, and B, having expectations of what Mr. Bungle can do from their main studio discography.
Just thinking about like the heavier side of stuff. I feel like if they'd got Tommy Iommi instead of Scott Ian to play guitar for this album, you'd be in fucking heaven. A combination of the heaviness, but they're like, we're not going to play faster than 70 BPM.
Yeah, actually, you got a point there.
I mean, in general, I would probably say in most genres, there's if you had a BPM ticker that went up, there's a point where my smile turns into a frown. So, yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
So I look forward to us doing the Dragon Force release.
Yeah, slash drum and bass playlist release. Okay. I mean, I'm ready to move on to the finale, unless you guys have other thoughts on. Oh no, sorry. There's 2 more tracks, so ready to move on to Glutton for Punishment, unless you guys have other thoughts on Lost for Words.
No, like I said, I could have done without the covers. So the Stormtrooper Death cover, and this is a Corrosion of Conformity cover.
Lost for Words or Glutton for Punishment?
Lost for Words.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What about Glutton for Punishment?
Wild.
Well, as you can see, Jack is clearly the bigger punk fan of all of us.
I've dabbled. Yeah, you guys go for Glutton. I need to do some research. This is where my notes run out because I didn't have time to do proper notes before this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go quick. I mean, again, I'm fatigued as fuck. This track didn't stand out. Again, not my kind of tempo. The kind of main riff with the kind of slide-in guitar, not my kind of thing. One of the weaker ones across the whole album.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm very fatigued at this point. It just sounds like noise at this point. It's like the neurons that were firing for thrash have basically they're just dull now. Because the drumming is really, really fast, really, really brutal. What you expect from I forgot his name now, Lombardo, Dave Lombardo.
Yeah,
did I get it right that time? Slayer fans still on my side.
They're still gonna hate you.
I'm gonna dox you for the Slayer fans. It's brutal and it's getting taxing at this point. And one of the least unchanging throughout. Again, with the other tracks that kind of had the thrash and then teased with other elements. This track just didn't. This track just stayed in the lane throughout. With nothing to pique interest unless you're kind of still hungering for that style.
Yeah, these last 2 tracks I kind of forgotten about until I think recently. Mr. Bungle released a video for Sudden Death, which obviously just brought it back to my consciousness. So I think there are two videos on this album. One is Sudden Death, and the other I think is Raping Your Mind. Is it Racist?
You mean music videos? Yeah, Raping Your Mind and A Racist. Yeah, those are the ones.
Is it just those two?
I think so. I'm on YouTube
I'm pretty
now.
sure I saw the one for A Racist as a link earlier.
Okay, I didn't know Racist was a video as well. I thought it was just Raping Your Mind and Sudden Death. All right, so it's three of them, but they're all very tooly, very all over the place.
So obviously, me and you, Dennis, not that hot. Jack, anything from this track or?
Glutton.
Yes, Glutton.
I think I'd similarly to how the lyrics are, like, you know, being sent around, like his stomach's full, he's been gorged. I was feeling pretty similar. There was a lot of thrash in my brain at this point of listening. It was good. It was better than a couple of other tracks on the album. It didn't make it onto my top 3. I wouldn't be the one I go to recommend to anybody.
Yeah, and the lyrics in places are too on the nose. I mean, again, like I said, I'm never someone that's going to really go too in depth with lyrics. It's genre dependent, but at least, you know, in metal, and it kind of it didn't do anything that was kind of clever for me, similar to kind of, I don't know, A Racist as well. I kind of felt it was too like kind of like banging you on a head with the lyrical themes.
See, Slayer had it right with some of their earlier albums. You know, we're going to give you a 2-3 minute song, and bang, like you're done. You get that brutality for 2 or 3 minutes, like and then you're out.
Man, they ain't even gonna get 2 minutes from me, to be honest, man. I'm gonna spread the pain. I'm gonna spread the pain from the.
We're gonna like literally anybody that likes Slayer's turned off already.
Yeah.
Not even like the earlier stuff, Seasons of the Abyss, and Rain in. Is it Rain in Blood?
Yeah, Rain in Blood.
The album title.
But see, yeah, no. So Slayer for me is band where you could put on like a Slayer playlist, like the greatest hits, and probably be like, all right, but like I'm not listening to a whole album. No.
All right, let's circle back around to Sudden Death before we piss anyone else off.
Yeah. So final track, thoughts.
It's
before
like
we do our favorites.
It's like they remembered what band they were just before finishing the album, because you get like all this sort of odd elements coming back in. They start stretching the structure of a thrash song a bit more as well. But
well, I was really hot in the beginning because the intro riff was like it literally within the same riff. It's going from like, you know, the tremolo pick super fast to like you know, there's so many little tempo changes and syncopation within the riff that I was fucking down. You know, like I said, at this point I was so fatigued. But you know, that intro riff captured me. It was very interestingly written. You know, and there were like the harmonics. There were lots of cool little things that they did to like keep it fresh. You know, just within the same section. So, you know, again, kind of similar to, was it Mathematics? Yeah, I think it was Mathematics. Too long. You know, I think it was one of the longest songs as well. But
like 7 minutes or something.
Yeah, I was. My interest was piqued a bit from being fatigued.
Yeah, 7.5.
Yeah, it was a great way to close the album, and yeah, I agree with both of you that this was them bringing back all the elements, and it's like, this is Mr. Bungle.
But it's not. It's not. When you say this is Mr. Bungle's, you know, album, yes, they brought it back. But saying this is Mr. Bungle, no. But
it is Mr. Bungle 1986.
You know what I mean, though.
This isn't
Mr. Bungle that released 3 of the most creative, experimental, like, you know, albums throughout, you know, the 90s.
But then, you know, like going back to our discussions last week with Tyler, this is like, dude's had a theme, dude stuck with the theme. Could it have had less tracks on? Yeah. Could it
Yeah.
have been more adventurous? Yeah. Have they released other stuff which is way more creative? Yeah. Does that have to impact this as a piece of work though?
It does, because it stands out as a sore thumb in their discography. Like just I do look at things in terms of, I don't want to say like in framing it in terms of legacy, but in terms of like growth and development, and kind of it's almost like you're walking up the stairs and kind of you're kind of either maturing or you're diversifying your sound, and this is like I said, a regression.
Yeah, but it's like,
how about
if you go with the walking upstairs analogy, this is like them going, you remember Stair One?
Mm.
You remember what that shit was like back in the 80s when this was like everywhere?
Yeah. Well, okay, how about this for an idea, right, guys? I think, again, we've talked about it, like the shortening or whatever. Maybe it was an EP. I think I would have had a much better time with this album if it was released under a different name. I get it doesn't go with the spirit of them doing, redoing that EP, but if this was just, because I think it primarily, obviously, the original would be Mike Patton and the lead guitarist. I forget his name. Apologies, but yeah. But if this was them two doing a new project, new band name, and obviously they did listed Dave and Scott, I think I would have had a much better experience going into it. But going into it with all the thoughts of what could Mr. Bungle do, that contributed to my personal letdown. So yeah, I think it should have just been under a different name. And like I said, I know that interferes with the kind of the thing of kind of re-recording the original EP, but it just wasn't Mr. Bungle.
I would say the only they're obviously missing drummer, but besides the keyboard player not being there, they've got 3 of the original members of Bungle. I would have felt it would be really weird if they'd got back together with 3 out of 5 of the original members, re-released a Bungle album or a Bungle demo, but called themselves something different.
Yeah, it just I don't know. I shouldn't be surprised that my expectations were subverted, but they were just subverted in the wrong.
Yeah, maybe this is the most Bungle album.
What about Audioslave? Audioslave didn't come back and be like, "Oh, it's Rage Against the Machine."
Yeah, but they had a completely different style.
That's a good point.
And they didn't cover any Rage Against the Machine songs either. If they'd come back and re-released a Rage Against the Machine album, but been like, no, but we're Audioslave.
That doesn't work, because Rage were always Rage. Rage, as far as I'm aware, never did anything that was so left field from their, their main, studio albums. As far as I'm aware.
I mean, probably, yeah, unless you want to count like beat poetry or something.
I get what you're saying.
Wait.
No.
What? You get what I'm saying, or what Dennis is saying?
No. I got what you were originally kind of referring to with kind of what you would expect.
Yeah.
Or what you wouldn't expect.
Also, Terry, is it Terry Spruance? No, the Terry something, the bassist.
Dunn.
He went on to be Terry Dunn. He went on to be like an avant-garde jazz bassist. So it would have been so cool to see like what Bungle they could have come about with those guys coming back together after going through all that they've gone through in the music career, and then putting their heads together and putting together a Bungle record. Yeah, I hope they release more stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I hope this was a sideline, like let's just get the wheels turning on this as a band, and now let's look to the future, because I would like to hear more from them, but obviously it's clear that I want them to kind of continue in the direction they were kind of going. It's hard to even say those things because they're almost like directionless, and obviously not in a bad way, but yeah.
I feel like it was a bit of like hitting a reset, because I did a bit of looking into what different members of Bungle have gone on to do, and like some of them are still doing weirder different influences, music styles type stuff. Some of them are not really known for doing anything. One of the Danny, I can't say his surname, Hayfitz or something. He was their drummer for a long time for most of their studio albums, I want to say, maybe all of them. I can't remember which. But he teaches music in Sydney and plays like 5 or 6 different instruments now, like trumpet and all this sort of stuff.
Was he at like a college or or he does it private? Do you know?
I want to say privately, but I'm not 100% on that. But
right. I that's his primary thing, as opposed to kind of being with a band as his main.
Yeah.
Vehicle. Yeah.
So yeah, like I say, like love Dave Lombardo, obviously, and the drums on this album are super fucking tight. Probably one of the big like stylistic choices of having that really clean, completely unstretched sound that's just powerful, but it's not too in your face. Comes from his style of drumming. Would have loved to see somebody who can play all that brass and play keyboards and is primarily a drummer come back in to see what influence that would have had on the original tracks, rather than a straight re-release with a better mix down.
Yeah. What could have been?
Should we do overall rating and then go into favorite tracks?
Sure.
And then,
could you remind us what the scales were again, Jack?
I sure can, Dennis. So our bottom tier is Trash It. Our second tier, where we put Ohms by Deftones, is Stream It. Tier above that is Buy It. Tier above that is Bang It. I can't remember what it was now, but apparently that's not a term that's used anymore. There's been a replacement term for that, which means exactly the same thing. So I'm not down with the kids. I'll have to find out what that is, and we could discuss it. And then obviously top tier, God tier, GOAT.
Okay. Check out TikTok, see what the kids are saying.
I will not do that, but if you want to, and let me know what's going on in there.
Okay. Well, I'll start with my rating. So you might think that my rating would be trashy. I'm not gonna say that, because there's just excellent performances on here. You know, vocals, drums, guitar. They're just like masters of their craft from a technical level, and you know, the production's great for the genre. You know, like I said, I think it was Jack, you said, you know, they deliver high quality you know, thrash. So in no way can I say this is like a 1 out of 5 album. You know, I'm going to say, you know, stream it with some caveats. Again, if you like Slayer, you like Anthrax, and you want 80s metal of the hard, fast variety, this is gonna seal the deal. And I'm sure this is going to be a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5 for people that, you know, that's their favorite shit. But you know, I'm going to say, you know, stream it with those caveats.
Any tracks
prepare to be disappointed if you're, you know, looking for, you know, Mr. Bungle album 4.
What are you saying, Dennis?
Any tracks you'd recommend?
Yeah, I can do my recommended tracks now. I would probably say Rape in Your Mind, Hypocrites, and Erasist.
Similar to me. So I would put this as Buy It, because, like you said, Hattie, these guys are masters of their craft. I mean, Dave Lombardo, did I get it right that time?
Yeah, Dave Lombardo.
That's fine. They're all coming for me now, since I said I couldn't listen to a whole Slayer album. So yeah, I think someone's at my door.
Dave Lombardo, Scott Ian, absolute masters. I don't know so much about Spruance, the guitarist from Mr. Bungle. I mean, he is a great guitarist. I'm not sure how sort of like respected he is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with his world. Yeah.
Outside of Mr. Bungle, I'm not so much familiar with it. Obviously, Mike Patton. It's a pleasure just to hear these guys play together.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I would put it as Buy It, because it's almost like it's like a super group type thing that works. Top tracks, I would say Bungle Grind. Great riffs in this. Really, really groovy. Similar to that's sort of my top track to recommend. Second track to recommend would be "Raping Your Mind." Similar sort of thing. Loads of riffs, loads of groovy riffs. Especially like after it gets past that little intro bit where it's like that's just I love that.
What, on raping your mind?
Raping Your Mind.
Yeah.
Like it's at about the 30-second mark or 25-second mark. That little bit. Yeah. It's great.
And Erasers was your third, would you say?
Erasers was my third.
See, I'm surprised. I know you said you didn't hate it, but like I said, I thought I heard you being more hot on others. But
on Erasers?
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that to be in your top three, just based on the conversation we had. But
it was alright. I liked how punky it was. It sounded very, very punk. Yeah. Jack and Lightness.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I've been almost the defender of this album. I feel like I don't know.
You've been the most hot on it, clearly.
Yeah. I think that I'm about to contradict myself a little bit. Only an hour and 25 minutes in, but
top 10 anime betrayals.
It's not a buy it for me because of the name on the box. If
this is what I was saying.
Yeah, I know, but it's a minimum stream it because of how top quality it is. Like, you should listen to this album. You just shouldn't listen to this album and expect a Bungle album. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
But if you know, fuck it. If fucking like Megadeth released this album,
right,
and I saw it in my library and I went and had a listen expecting Megadeth or expecting Exodus or Testament or any of these metal bands where I expect a little bit more of a one-dimensional approach, not in a negative way, but just to, like, I know what to expect more than
sticking
with
to
Mr.
the
Bungle.
genre confines.
Yeah. Then I buy this because it's top tier thrash metal.
Right. But then again with the hypothetical, if this is just Mike Patton thrash project, it would still fall in that middle rating for you. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, if it's
that 3 out of 5.
If it comes out under Mike Patton and Friends,
right,
probably buy it because my expectations would have been.
That's still low for me.
Would have been set differently. Yeah.
I was gonna just based on the conversation we have, I think that's such a low scoring for you to give it. I get your framing, because your framing in terms of it being under the Mr. Bungle label is exactly what I was trying to put across. But yeah, I'm very surprised at your scoring.
I think elements like, because it's such a mix of everything. Like in the interview that Dennis sent out, which Ian was talking about how this at the time were loads of tracks that were kind of pushing the envelope of what thrash was, as it was still like settling down as a genre. And I think that a lot of the stuff that it has in it, thrash kind of developed a cleaner approach that was, not necessarily better all the time, but it's definitely easier to sit with for a whole album.
Right, like the genre found its feet after.
Yeah. Like this album moments has like hundreds of riffs on it. It easily over 100 different riffs you could pick out, which is crazy. But there's no massive overarching riff like that builds over a song or keeps coming back and hits those like serotonin releasing parts of your brain over and over, which are like, that's part of Bungle. Bungle don't write that way. But then it's all like, it's, you know what I mean? If I was to score this as a Bang It or a GOAT album, it would have to combine that commercial benefits with the genre breaking mosaic approach of their style.
That's well put.
well, it'd have to stand out. Whereas at the moment, it's just a top quality thrash album, but it doesn't quite.
There's a weight of expectation on this band for, I guess they're like a cult band, right? And they've kind of set the bar high. They're not necessarily like one of my like favorite bands that I will always go back to, but they've, at least in terms of like the creativity, the technicality, they've set the bar high for themselves.
Yeah, that's the annoying
previous
thing
output.
It's the annoying thing about judging this album and reviewing this, because they achieve what they set out to do very, very well.
Yes.
But within the context of Mr. Bungle, it's disappointing.
Yes, I mean, you can tell from this they could pick any genre under the sun and do it to a competent level. But I prefer, I guess, yeah, you're looking for that jack of all trades, approach rather than the master. They can be the jack of all trades and they can be the master, but give me the
Did you give us
mosaic?
Did you give us your top 3, Jack?
No. So, Mathematics was probably the highlight of the album for me. Like lots and lots of,
Despite the ending?
It's not like a despite the ending thing. It's just like I've had 8 minutes of song.
Okay.
The ending was a really, really sick riff. When as soon as it started, I was like, "This is fucking sick." Then about 30 seconds in, I was like, "Okay, I mean, it's still going." Then about 45 seconds in, I was like, "Wow, it's still going."
Yeah, it kept your attention for the main part of the song.
Like Mike Patton got to do more Mike Patton things on this track than a lot of the other tracks on the album. Almost every track has sick riffs, but this has got, a few of the best ones. Probably more different riffs than a lot of other tracks as well. Raping Your Mind was second. Those fucking solos, man. Just no apologies, balls to the wall. Highlight. Solo after solo after solo. And then Bungle Grind was my third one. I'm surprised you guys didn't include that in your ones. I thought that was
Dennis, you put in your list.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
sorry.
That was my top. That was my top recommendation.
It was one of my least favorites. So I'm the opposite to you guys.
I switched my brain off apparently when you were talking. Then my apologies. But yeah, I agree with Dennis. Hattie's dumb. This is a great song.
I've been saying this.
Okay.
Someone that looks like Kerry King is beating me right now. Beating me with a guitar.
For the tier, not for the score, I guess. It's not a tier list, but are we happy with putting it in Stream It then?
Yeah, solidly.
Would you like to make a final case for Buy It, Hattie? Or Dennis even?
No, I can see both your points in that. Yeah, in that you sort of we were all hoping, I guess, for a bit of avant-garde, something a bit different.
This needs to be in Stream It with like the biggest asterisk in the world. That's what I would say.
You know what, Dennis?
It's like a dietary requirement list following it.
I feel like Dennis was coming up with some ideas that we could do for different stuff earlier on. I feel like one thing we could do is have massive opinions that differ when we're placing the albums. We come back, we do a I don't know, like Judge Judy was the only TV judge I could think of. We do like a judge court where someone has to defend their opinion. Yeah.
I mean, that's the interesting thing, because I feel like we diverged, so much, and found that center position almost. So that's the interesting thing from these type of discussions.
You actually put an asterisk in there. Nice.
I did. Yeah. Hey man, that's it's top quality production. That's what I'm here for.
Right. So that's the review, people.